Welcome to today's video. We will be discussing the different mixes in musical theater and pop music. So as you probably remember, when we're dealing with classical singing, we're in our modal instrument, we're usually just talking about chest, middle, and head voice. In musical theater, and pop music, when we have high intense singing, we can actually choose some different options besides pure head voice. And there are various different terms and vocabulary in the singing world to discuss these different mixes. In today's video, we'll just describe them as follows. We'll talk about a chesty mix, so a chest dominant mix, a head mix, so a head dominant mix, a balanced mix, so kind of like a marriage between the two, and we'll talk about legit head voice. So those will be the terms we'll be discussing. And what I wanted to do was just briefly describe each of the terms, demonstrate, and invite you to kind of follow along in a demonstration, and then listen to a famous professional singer actually do these different mixes. And we're going to listen to the same singer so that you can hear the quality and type of voice will be the same. So hopefully that consistency will help you discover this a bit more. So I want to make one disclaimer. It's my conviction that head mix or balanced mix, but even more so head mix, is going to be the more sustainable and healthy approach to higher intense musical theater singing. That does not mean that there aren't occasions where thoughtfully choosing to do a chest mix is appropriate, but in my studio I tend to approach things in a much more head mix or balanced mix way. This is for a number of reasons, but for the most part, singers are coming in with a more chest dominant approach to singing anyway. It's usually what we hear on the radio. It's something that they're already doing naturally. So a lot of the times what I'm doing when I'm working with singers is actually trying to balance out the instrument by bringing head voice down and finding more freedom and less muscle in the head voice. Nevertheless, it is important for you to be able to discern these mixes both in your own voice and your own instrument and when you're listening to professional singers do it as well. So that's the purpose of this video. So I first wanted to discuss with you chest mix. So this is, of course, where you're singing with a chest dominant sound, higher and more intensely. And some ways to describe the sound are maybe muscular, maybe shouty, maybe throaty. I think that those are good terms to describe chest mix. So what I wanted to demonstrate was I'm going to use Mary Had a Little Lamb for all of my demonstrations. I'll be doing this on a C5, then you'll want to take this down the octave to a C4. And if you try this on a C5 and it's not comfortable, like you can't do it without straining, feel free to take this down to an A. So men, that would be an A3, women, that would be an A4. So here we are at an A5 in our chesty mix. Mary had a little lamb. So you can kind of hear there's a little bit more muscularity in the sound. It's quite a powerful sound. There's just a unique quality to it. Maybe not as much ring or upper partials to the sound, but definitely powerful and intense. Here is kind of the other end of the spectrum with our heady mix. So this is going to have more of the head voice quality to the sound. It's going to have maybe less chest voice muscle, more flexibility and ring in the sound than the chesty mix. Mary had a little lamb. Okay, so that's pretty much a head dominant mix. I could have probably even used more head in that sound. And then a balance it's again, we're kind of playing with watercolors here. This is more about like very subtle nuances, but balance is going to be a marriage between the two. It's going to have more of the power of the chest mix with a little bit of the head voice ring and flexibility. So here is our balanced mix. Mary had a little lamb. Okay, so, and then I also wanted to demonstrate more of a pure head voice sound. This is like, we could do this straight toned, or we could do this with vibrato. If we did it with vibrato, that's more of that legit head voice quality, like in classical music or golden age musical theater. Or we could do this straight tone, like in a more choral setting or in some pop musical theater sound. So I'll do this with some vibrato. Mary had a little lamb. So it's much more classical sounding. Okay, so with that, I wanted to play some clips for you of Jessie Mueller. Now, Jessie Mueller is a fabulous performer. She is extremely versatile. You'll be able to hear how she's kind of able to access all of these different sounds and mixes just in a brief clip. So she's an extremely versatile performer, and this takes lots of practice. This takes lots of time, lots of getting to know your own instrument and willingness to experiment. So she didn't do this overnight. Just for encouragement for you in your practice time. So here is a chest dominant mix, and this is actually her Tony performance of the song She Used to Be Mine. She actually had laryngitis, I believe, when she was performing this, so you'll really be able to hear it's much more chesty in quality, quite a bit of muscle in the sound. So this is from the musical The Waitress. Okay, so that was her more chest dominant approach to that song. She's a professional singer. This is a choice that she's making, and also probably something she's negotiating with illness. Here is her singing the same song in a more balanced registration. So you'll be able to hear that there's a little bit more ring in the sound. There's slightly less muscle in the sound. And particularly notice how she sings the words, finally. That, I think, is a good example. Finally, I'll do it again. That's a good example of having a more head mix. So this is the same clip and the same portion of the song, but a different recording. So she could have sung till it finally fall, but she chose instead to do finally, a more head mix in that. Here is an example of her really doing a fabulous job of negotiating between a chest and a head mix in just a brief interval. So you'll be able to hear that. This is Every Night at 7, which is from the musical On a Clear Day. And this is not within the production, but this is really cool. So she'll start off in a more chest mix and then move toward a heady mix toward the end. And lastly, I wanted you to hear an example of her performing in a legit head voice. So this is Vanilla Ice Cream from She Loves Me. And yeah, this is a Golden Age musical theater piece. You can hear it. It's just a much more classical sound. And just notice the difference in timbre here.
It all reminds me of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right before my eyes.
Okay, so that is sort of a crash course in identifying the different mixes. Hopefully this was helpful. I will link all of these videos in the YouTube description so you can watch them for yourselves as well. And I'll even include the timestamps of the samples that I used. And I'll also link a video that I found helpful in discerning the differences between all of these mixes too. Alrighty, happy singing!